안녕하세요. Today I learned how to use direct speech in Korean, and I'm going to make this video to help me remember. It is actually the 17th time that I've tried to make it and I felt embarrassed or like I made a mistake, and I don't care anymore, and this is going to be the one, and let's do it. So if I make a mistake, that's part of learning. So today I learned how to use direct speech in Korean. Direct speech is exactly what the person said, and it's very easy to use in Korean, it seems. I'm sure there are multiple levels, but the important thing to remember is that you have to keep their words exactly the same. You cannot paraphrase. So if the person said hello exactly like this, then you can have to keep those words exact. The way it works in terms of a formula, I like to find the patterns in this, and that's one thing I love about Korean is the patterns. Is the first thing you do is you put the person's name, and I almost always, in fact I think I always in the textbook saw that they used the particle for the person's name that said it, and I saw I, ga used most common. In fact, all of the examples I saw were polite, so they would always say like, Jimin shiga, so it would add chi in there as well. But I'm sure you could change that. Let's stick to what I know. I did also see nun in a couple of the conversation, the dialogue examples, but I'm going to use I, ga for now because I think it's a way of emphasizing that this person, this specific person said this specific thing. So I'm going to stick with this one until I learn better. Anyway, after you have the person's name, then you have exactly what they said. So you cannot change it. It has to be in quotation marks. I am an English teacher, by the way, and single quotation marks are considered more academic in academic writing, or if it was a storybook, something more creative, you would have double, but I like single. So you would have whatever they said exactly, and I noticed that they tended to have their punctuation mark, even though it's not quite the end of the sentence, they punctuated whatever they said. So if it was a full stop at the end, then you would put a full stop. If it was an exclamation mark, you would make an exclamation mark, or if it was a question, you'd have a question mark inside. And lastly would be the grammar that I learned. So the grammar has two options. You would leave a space, it doesn't seem to be a particle, so a space, and then you write rago or hago. There is differences between them. Rago is going to become my favorite one that I use, and I'll explain why in a moment. It's not finished even though I've run out of space. You need some sort of verb here, and there were several options, but to keep it simple, you can just have the hara. So you could have this person said, so you would say 했어요. If you want to say this person says in present tense, then you could have 해요. Or they might be asking a question. I don't know why this would be a question, but you know, 안녕, maybe, yeah, how are you? So the other one you can remember now to keep it simple is 물어보다. So usually it would be in the past. This person asked, so you would have 물어봤어요. So that's the formula, that's the pattern that you can memorize. Before I go on to an example, just the difference between rago and hago. So this is what I think I've learnt today. By the way, if I actually upload this and somebody who knows better watches it, if anyone watches it, but if you know better, please comment and tell me, is that's how I might learn something. So from what I think I understand, some no-nos, and the reason I'm going to stay away from hago is because if you're got the person saying something and then you use hago and then you use this one, so maybe they said something, 했어요. From what I understand, this sounds bad. It sounds repetitive. So you should use rago if you're going to use 했어요. Or if you use hago, then you can change 했어요 to 말했어요. So you can have the 말 in there to say said. So that wasn't one of the options here to say 말했어요, but you can. And again, this complicates it for me personally, so I'm just going to use 라고 so I don't get confused. But for those people who want to know, and for myself, another no-no is if in the quote, whatever's said, if that ends with some sort of 하다 verb, then you shouldn't use 하고 because, again, it sounds repetitive. So if you have whatever they said ended with 해요, then saying 해요 하고, it just doesn't sound good, apparently. It doesn't sound correct, unnatural. And that goes for other endings, some that I saw in the book where they didn't tend to use 하고 if it finished with 하세요, or they didn't tend to use 하고 if it finished with 합니다. So any of these 하, they didn't like to use 하고. So that's why I'm gonna stick to 라고 because it seems like it has less problems and I might make less mistakes. Also, they did say that 하고 is used in children's stories because it has some emotion behind it. It's like you're quoting the person with the original inflection and emotion intended. It's like you were doing voices in a children's story. So this one is apparently a lot more vivid. It has a lot more emotion behind the quote and it's used in children's stories. So it's like a storyteller vibe. And I'm not that confident with my Korean personally, so I'm gonna stay with 라고. Also because they said that it's used more often in in conversation. I don't know if one's more formal and one's more casual. Now this is the one I'm gonna use. It avoids me making a mistake here and making a mistake here and maybe making the story, whatever I'm talking about, making it sound a bit silly or like I'm trying to, I don't know how tone works exactly in Korean. I just try and be understood. So let's keep it simple for me. All right, now I'm going to give 2 examples before this video gets too long. So I'm going to have a person say something and then I'm going to have a person ask something just so you can see more like it's for me. But yeah, I'll pretend I'm doing it for someone else. Okay, so in English first, which I don't always do. Sometimes I like to go straight to Korean, but I'm going to do it this time. So I'm going to come up with a person's name. Let's do Minsu said, oh yeah, in English we would put a comma and then quotation. The weather is good today. All right, that's it in English. And so we first of all take the name and put that first. And I'm going to use 이가. I'm going to be polite, so I'll say 민수 씨가. And then I take exactly what they said. We're in quotation marks, so we will put a comma there. They don't. At least that's not what I saw. So, oops. Oh no. 날씨가 춥네요. Full stop, quotation mark. And then lastly, the grammar. The grammar. So I'm going to keep it simple and stick with 라고, and they said it. Keep it simple. 했어요. Now, somebody comment if I'm wrong. That is one thing I learned today. And then if you have somebody asking a question, let's do Minsu. She's gonna help me again. Minsu asked, what is your name? So we're going to be polite again. Always good idea in Korean to be more polite than you need to. 민수 씨가. And exactly what was said. One of the first good things to learn in Korean. Let's keep. Oh wait, yeah, we'll do the one I learned when I first learned. 이름이 뭐예요? Question mark, quotation mark, and lastly the grammar asked. So we will do 라고 물어보았어요. Alright, so that's what I learned today. How to write and say direct speech, what somebody else said in Korean. Let's leave it there. I learned something, I think, today. And if I ever show this to anyone, maybe it will help you too. Bye!